I had 5 kids. They were all young. And I started making plans.
Oh my goodness.
I started getting things in order. If 2 people in the home died, a dog was dead that wasn't dead when I was there. Rodents were there dead. We did not see them dead when we were there, but now they are. We were in that house for a good 45 minutes.
Stay tuned. Coming up, it's part 2 of my 2-part interview with Misty Worrell, discussing her exposure to deadly methyl bromide on an EMS call. But first, let's hear from our amazing sponsor, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire, a factory direct manufacturer. That means no middleman. You work directly with the good folks right at their factory in Laverne, Minnesota. If you want to see just how easy it is to design your own Midwest Fire truck, check out the Create a Spec tool on their website. To get started, go to MidwestFire.com and click on the Create a Spec tab at the top of the homepage. Hello and welcome to the Situation Awareness Matters Show, episode 324. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-stress, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by our new online training platform, Gassaway Virtual Training. We now have 33 training programs for your members. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit samatters.com and click on the Virtual Training tab. Hey, in case you missed it, I hosted a live virtual training program on May 2nd, titled How Smart Responders Use Situational Awareness to Improve High-Risk Decision-Making. That program is now one of the virtual training programs offered on our platform. Check it out. All right, let's jump into today's feature segment, part 2 of my 2-part interview with Misty Worrell, discussing her exposure to deadly methyl bromide on an EMS call. There's a certain point where even the best of situational awareness doesn't lead you to be that paranoid about every EMS environment you go into. I mean, I think you'd probably go psychologically crazy if you came onto every scene with that kind of mindset. So what are the takeaways to this for for EMS or fire or even police that would be coming into a call like this?
Listen to your gut, first of all. Would I have changed the way we responded? No. I just had no reason not to go in to see what was happening at the call. Pay attention to the little things. If something just looks weird, be sure to document it. Those little things that I saw, the ice pick, that was in my report. I did not even know until later, that was even used as, an adjunct to help with this crime.
In hindsight, our view is always better. But what would you give for advice or ideas to folks who might have a similar experience?
So I'll just kind of start back at the beginning, is listen to your gut. It's real. Your gut and your brain, they talk to each other. And when you get that weird feeling in your gut, that's your brain telling you something's not right. Pay attention to all the little things, the things that you don't think are important, may be very important later. Not just for you at the moment, at the event, but later on, if this becomes, goes to litigation at some point. But for this call in particular, I don't know why. Maybe it was because those spidey senses were going on, but I paid attention to probably more than I normally would have, just because something was weird.
You had
That ice pick,
a heightened vigilance to your surroundings.
very much so. That ice pick, for some reason, that's like a big deal to me because that's what caused it.
Yeah.
That ice pick was the thing that caused all of this chaos to happen.
Now, the lady, was she acting, I mean, other than the language barrier, was she acting weird?
Yes. Yes. She just wasn't forthcoming. Even with a language barrier, typically they're trying to help. When you see something so, traumatic happening in your home, you try to lend some kind of something. But it just felt like it was pulling teeth, and she was in and out of the room, and just very different to me. And then pay attention to, even when you're working on your patient or working at the scene, pay attention to those things outside. Like my peripheral vision, thank God I was able to see that second person because that is actually what got me really concerned. Like, I knew something was weird with the patient, but that solidified it for me.
Okay.
Documentation, holy cow, can't even begin to tell you how important that documentation ended up being.
Okay.
All of the little things. It was probably a 3 or 4 page narrative for this event, for this call.
I have a question that came in on Facebook from Chief Nick Adams from McCutcheonville, Indiana. He wants to know, was there any previous history at this home, law enforcement wise, that the agent that was provided, was any of that, if there was any of that information provided to you prior to arrival that might have been more alert?
So our EMS agency had never responded to this home before.
Okay.
There were no previous calls. There were no priors, no caution notes, anything like that.
Okay. And was the police, I don't know how things run differently in different jurisdictions. Would the police be normally dispatched to a call like this on the initial call, or would they have to be summoned later? Where was the police involvement in this?
So whenever the call came into 911, it did not come in as anything that was a red flag that would require the police to be dispatched. It's up to our dispatcher and us, which is why I made that phone call to the dispatcher to say, hey, what's up with this? Something sounds wrong. Something's a little off. And he said, after talking to the wife, there was a language barrier, but they have a translation program. And he said, it just seems like the language barrier made him feel like she was just not able to describe what was going on, but that he did not feel it was anything to be concerned about.
Okay. And who does the dispatch for you?
It was in-house. Our communication center dispatched for our EMS agency as well as all of the fire departments in our jurisdiction, which were probably 10, 15.
Okay.
So, but very robust. They were this was not some, small dispatch agency that had to piecemeal stuff together. This was a very robust dispatch and communication center.
Mm-hmm. Now, when this is all done and you're past the 2 weeks, you go back to work, I assume.
I never stopped going to work.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So how was your mindset or your vigilance about other calls that you were going to after that? I mean, did you like cross over the line to paranoid awareness of things, since you kind of got caught in this situation? Did anything change about how you started to look at other calls? Did you find yourself saying to yourself, gosh, it's silly, I'm thinking that there might be, something that was released at this house that might, where does your mind go after something like that?
I could lie and say, yeah, I don't honestly remember the next 36 hours. I really don't. I can tell you that meeting that we had with the hazmat team, but I honestly could not tell you anything that happened on the rest of that shift.
Yeah.
And I think because I was probably so completely just overcome, with fear, number one. And what if, or what could I have done differently? I really did blame myself. I really man, I should have listened to myself. But it wouldn't have changed anything. I still would, even if the police had come with us, we still all would have gone into the house. And the police would not have done a sweep of that house and looked for things like that. They would have seen somebody who was critically ill and flagged us in.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't have mattered if we'd had the cavalry with us. All that would have honestly been was more exposures.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nick wanted to know, what was the original nature code of the call that was put out by dispatch?
Emotional, and I don't think it was disturbance. I think it was like an emotional something or other. Not disturbance wasn't used. I can't remember the exact terminology for our determinants, but they were preset determinants.
Uh-huh.
Distress, emotional distress.
Okay. And that wouldn't be the kind of call that would get the police naturally dispatched to it?
Well, it depends on what the calling party is able to convey to the dispatch center. But because there was a language barrier and because he was able to extract some stuff from her, he just didn't feel like it was truly an emotional distress call. But he didn't know how else to tag it. Mm-hmm. So he just felt like the husband was ill, but she couldn't explain to him what the illness was.
Yeah. How many times, and I'm going to ask you a question. You might be thinking, Rich, can you actually expect that I would remember this? But I'm going to ask anyhow. How many times previous to this call had your spidey senses rose to the level of concern that they were on this call? Is this something that happens to you frequently, infrequently, or this was a first occurrence?
Frequently. I had terrible calls. This was, I for whatever reason, my shifts were just incredibly busy. Anytime something just felt off, I would always call the dispatcher. That was very normal for me to call dispatch and say, give me some more detail before I, bring everybody in.
Mm-hmm. And had you historically had calls where you staged out and waited for police to clear the scenes for you?
Yeah. If it was something that I felt was a danger to my crew and to me, oh, absolutely.
But you just didn't feel that this call rose to that level.
I didn't. Something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't. It just didn't. That just never in my wildest dreams would have ever been what it was.
Yeah. As you were first describing it, before you said what the chemical was, I was thinking carbon monoxide. Because that causes people to eventually become unresponsive, and then also emissating is a byproduct of carbon monoxide exposure as well. Do you carry any kind of like a 4-gas monitor? Not that they would have detected this chemical, but do you carry any kind of a gas monitor on an EMS bag that you would take into a home?
No, we did not, and still it's not common practice to.
Yeah. It wouldn't detect that
No.
anyhow, but just for like hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, oxygen levels, just.
Interestingly enough, they of course they weren't able to detect it because they found the canisters because there's really not a detection device for it. But they feel it wouldn't have, unless they had gone to the ground, which they probably would have had they had a detection. They wouldn't have detected it anyway because it's such a heavy gas.
If you'd have got that patient off that bed and onto the floor, you'd have been.
We'd all been dead.
Yeah.
Within hours.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it would have been within hours. Because we would have had direct, we would have been literally in the cloud because that's where the dog was. So funny, everything was based around this dog that I was so annoyed with.
Yeah.
And the dog was just reacting to probably new people, but also it's in a cloud down there and it's getting ready to start experiencing some pretty nasty stuff. And
Right. How did your organization support you and your partner, both medically and as far as like post-traumatic support? Was there anything there as a support mechanism for you?
At the time, there really wasn't much out there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this is like 2001, right?
I loved that agency, so I don't want to make it sound like they did anything wrong.
Well, back then it wasn't as
It just
prevalent to have that kind of
it
support.
wasn't, and that's the thing. So they did what they could. They checked in with me all the time. I mean, I was getting phone calls every single day, multiple times a day, just asking me how I was feeling, if I needed anything. But remember, I was still working my regular shifts, so I was also in direct, contact with them as well. No, because again, just was a different time. Now it would be a completely different scenario, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
But at the time, they did what they could internally. I want to say at that point, the CISD platform had just started in Bluebonnet. I don't know if you were familiar with Bluebonnet, but Bluebonnet was kind of the first resource for EMS or for any public service, really, for CISD. And so my husband's also a paramedic. And so interestingly, he was on that first CISD Bluebonnet team. So he had training. So I had support at home. It's very different when you've got somebody in the field that understands your concerns, that lives with you, that can also be that support system. And he'd been through that training. So we did talk about it a lot. We still talk about it.
Yeah. I'd like to take you to a place in this conversation that if you don't want to go there, we'll just move on to a different topic. But if you would want to go there, I think would be valuable for our listeners and viewers to gain some perspective. Those 2 weeks when you said you were getting some of your life's matters in order, what did those conversations sound like at home? And what does getting your life in order mean? What were you setting out to get aligned, both with your husband, but with your kids and with your life's affairs? Some would say it would be a gift to know that you had 2 weeks, and some would say it'd be the greatest curse imaginable to know that you have 2 weeks and the torture and the torment that you would go through. What was happening on the home side of this, if you'd be willing to share any of that?
I would give it the curse side of the world. I immediately started checking into our life insurance, making sure that everything was up to date and that beneficiaries were in place. We did never talk to our kids about it. In fact, my 30-year-old daughter just today asked me what I was doing today because we were having a chat on Facebook about my lighting, actually, because I could not get lighting right. And she's like, what are you doing today? And I told her, she goes, you gotta be kidding me. Like, my kids, even to this day, don't even know about it. But making sure that, so my husband and I have a yours, mine, and ours family. And making sure that my kids from my previous marriage were taken care of. We had a child together, making sure that everything was in order for her. And my husband's children, who would not be affected by it financially, of course, but just kind of making sure that everybody would still have, our kids had grown up together since they were babies. And, one of the things that I wanted to make sure was that they all still were in, state of family. My husband and I talked about the things that you talk about, do you have is my funeral paid for with our life insurance? How are we going to handle this if I just don't die? What if I just start seizing uncontrollably, which is really how you die from this? How long do I want to remain in that state? Do I want to? The answer was no. I know the outcome. If that starts, let me go. End it. Don't let that be prolonged. And that was a hard discussion. because with every headache, you know what happens with stress. You know what happens with your body. You release cortisol, and cortisol is a great thing in moderation. But man, whenever it starts getting overloaded in your system, it causes all kinds of bad things.
Right.
So the symptoms that you look for were stress-induced symptoms as well. So I was experiencing all of that, thinking this is it. You know.
Right.
So.
How old are your kids now?
30. So see, 30. So 33. Two 30-year-olds. 28 and 27.
Do they know about this now?
No. They may right now.
Yeah, yeah.
They may now.
If they're on Facebook, they'll know about it. Or yeah, I don't suspect unless they're a first responder, they're tied into my podcast.
My husband, my son is actually a paramedic. He just got his paramedic certification.
Okay.
Very well, he may be.
You might want to get ahead of this.
Hey kids.
Mom, you're sharing this with the world. You never shared this with us.
Right.
Is there anything that you would want to share that you haven't had the chance to share because I didn't ask the right question?
No, I think you've asked the right questions. I think the takeaway here, so SA Matters is a great, I can't even think of a better name, because it's really, when you're responding, it's all that matters. Because if you don't make it out of there alive, when I was sitting in your class, I kept getting looks from not only my husband and Alan Sims, but anybody else that worked with me at that time, which there were several people in the room. I mean, we have a very large network, and they were all like, "Oh my God, you've got to go talk to him." And I was like, "No, no. I do not want to talk about this." And then I kept getting peer pressure. But I didn't. But then I thought how important it is to talk about it. Number one, and well, maybe that is something we haven't talked about. Talk about it. Talk about it, because we talked about it amongst me and my partner, but and the supervisor. But there was really no other discussion about it. And once it was over, and it was almost like when that 2 weeks ended, it was supposed to be okay. You're good. Well, for me, I'm like, well, who gives it the 2 week mark? Why can't it be 3 weeks or 4 weeks or a month? Why is it just 2 weeks? And holy crap, now I have to sit here and maybe worry some more. So talking about things like this with the people that you can talk about it with, I think is hugely important.
When you were sitting in the class, what was going through your mind as you were hearing what I was saying and then reflecting back on this that had happened to you?
That call, like literally that call was all I was thinking about. Because I was relating, and it wasn't, obviously you didn't talk about that call specifically, but everything you did, and then that quiz, that stupid quiz at the end, I really felt like, oh man, I got this. I got it.
Yeah.
I didn't have it. I did not have it. But I think it's different too when you're sitting in a classroom.
Sure. Oh yeah.
You're on a scene. But it does bring awareness to your mind that maybe you need to be a little bit more, focused on what's going on around you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, kudos to you for having the vigilance, and the intuition, the connect to intuition. A lot of people that have that intuitive response and their spidey senses tingle, they dismiss it. They wouldn't call dispatch and ask for more information, or they wouldn't come into the call with any kind of heightened vigilance. They don't understand where that intuition comes from, and then they just dismiss it and ignore it, where it sounds like you went with it. You took it and used it to your advantage, even though it didn't at the time reveal to you exactly what the problem was. You were vigilant enough to notice things in your environment, including the ice pick, the dog acting perhaps a little bit unusual, the wife acting either unconcerning toward the cardiac arrest patient, or at least bizarre in her demeanor, even with the language barrier. And you know, those clues are enough to get us get us alert to be conscientious of the things that are happening around us.
And don't be a hero. Don't think you're weak because you're having concerns about a call. Don't think, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a baby and call and say, hey, what's going on with this? Call.
Yeah.
You're making it home at the end of your shift or 2 weeks later is the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, when you don't put yourself first and your safety first, no one's going to benefit from anything you've ever done in your career. If you end up, the target, or, unfortunately, yeah. Well, so this call in particular, we ended up having about 8 people who were exposed. I mean, we had 2 EMS crews, we had supervisors, we had fire crews. The dispatcher actually that dispatched me to the call, when he got off duty at midnight, he came straight to the call because he was a first responder in our area. He came straight to the call. So he was even there because he was that like, holy cow, what is happening? So don't be a hero.
Yeah.
You got a job to do, but don't think you're weak for being concerned.
Right. Well, I appreciate you stepping up and having that conversation with me at the program, although it sounds like you were kind of pushed to have that conversation with me. But it takes a lot of courage to step up and to be on the show and to share your story, with a broader audience, and your lessons learned and the things that happened, and put yourself out there. A lot of people won't do that. At a program, they'll tell me about a near miss they had, and I'll say, would you like to be a guest on my show? No, I don't want to do that. I don't know what the glitch is, but whether they want to put themselves out there for potential criticism, which the people who watch my show, they don't criticize my guests. They're thankful that my guests will share what happened to them, because they know that your experience will make them smarter for the next time that they go to a call.
I say criticize away. I mean, if you could have done it differently or better and it would have made a difference, if that teaches somebody something, criticize. I am not beyond that, but I'm an educator. So this to me is the only way people can learn, is through other people's experiences.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for being a guest on the show. And if somebody wanted to reach you with a follow-up question, do you have a best way that they could contact you? And be careful what you say, because what you're going to put out there is going to be, widely distributed. Or would you want them to contact me and then I could reach out to you on their behalf? How would you like to do that?
It doesn't matter. Facebook Messenger. I mean, I'm on Facebook, so my profile is typically public. If it's not, it will get sent to my messenger, and I check that daily. So.
Thank you again, Misty, for sharing your incredible story with us. Remember, this was part 2 of a 2-part interview. So if you missed the first part, be sure to go back and listen to last week's show for the setup. Since 2007, SA Matters instructors have helped more than 1,200 organizations and 87,000 individuals improve high-risk decision-making, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, highway workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and many, many more. If you or someone you care about works in a high-risk, high-consequence, decision-making environment, then we are here to help to improve their safety and their survival, and to help them accomplish the most important mission of all. And that's to come home to you, whole and healthy, the ones who love them. Normally, this is the part of the show where I thank the organizations that have hosted recent situational awareness programs and where I share a list of the upcoming events. But the pandemic and social distancing rules have caused all of my live events to be postponed. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a little walk down memory lane and share some of the organizations and thank some of the organizations that have hosted programs this time last year. The Maryland Fire Chiefs Association, the Scott Township Fire Department in Evansville, Indiana, the Fast 19 Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, the Buckley Fire Department in Buckley, Washington, the Washington Fire Chiefs Association Conference, the Safety Institute Conference, and Syncrude, Canada. All of our programs, past, virtual, postponed, and future, are all listed on the SA Matters website. If you're interested in seeing the list of where we've been or where we're going, just head over to the site and click the program dates under the training tab at the top of the homepage. If you're interested in hosting a program, virtually or live when the pandemic is over, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage and I'll give you a call. Remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we're sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 324 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Misty Worrell. Thank you to our amazing platinum sponsor for more than 5 years now, Midwest Fire. Thank you to our feature segment sponsor, the Gasaway Virtual Training. And thank you to our associate sponsor, Chief Miller. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with us today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.